Good day all. We welcome each and every one of us to the 2-day masterclass on publishing in Q1 and Q2 journals using meta-analysis. We welcome us to the program because in recent time, this is one of the methodology that have been used to publish quality papers, and we deem it fit at the level of our company to bring it to the limelight of researchers, scholars, and also students, so that we can also tap from the wealth of experience of some of our researchers. This is a brief citation of Dr. Abdulwakil Saba. Dr. Abdulwakil Saba is a lecturer in the Department of Fishery, Faculty of Science, Lagos State University, and a postdoctoral researcher at the Laboratory of Aquatic Animal Health, Laboratory of Aquatic Animal Health and Therapeutic, Institute of Bioscience, University Putra, Malaysia. He specializes in fishery, aquatic ecology, and sustainable aquaculture. His research dives into fish community dynamics, invasive species risk assessment and management, and strategy to enhance aquaculture health. Dr. Saba earned his BSc and MSc degree from Lagos State University and University of Lagos, graduating with first-class honors and distinction, respectively, from both institutions. He later obtained a PhD in fishery science from University Putra, Malaysia in 2021. As an expert in systematic review and meta-analysis, Dr. Saba synthesized evidence on key topics such as invasive species, fisheries management, and aquaculture. His work, published in leading journals, has significantly contributed to advancing sustainable practice in fishery and aquaculture. Dr. Saba currently serves as an assistant editor for the Journal of Fish Biology, published by Wiley, and is a reviewer for several prestigious international journals. We all bear witness to me that we all understand that Wiley is one of those top leading publishing houses, and that's the reason why we are bringing an expert who is going to tell us not about writing the papers alone, but some of the challenges we might encounter when submitting the papers, what is being expected. So that even apart from the fact that we have developed our manuscripts, what are those things that will make us to scale through? Because one thing is writing the manuscript, another thing is submitting and scaling through the review process. We also implore us to also subscribe to our YouTube channels. On the YouTube channel, we have a lot of videos. We can subscribe and learn more. At this point, join me to invite Dr. Abdulwakil Saba to commence the lecture. Dr. Abdulwakil Saba, you can start to share your screen. I will stop sharing immediately.
Okay, good day, everyone. So, it's my pleasure to be a part of this 2-day masterclass. I want to quickly share my screen, my slide. Is it visible?
Yes, doctor. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, we can see.
Okay, sure. Okay, so first of all, I want to welcome each and every one of us to this 2-day masterclass, and I also want to appreciate the organizer of this program, which is Client Aspire Limited. So I'm happy to come and share some little knowledge, and also, if possible, learn from the scholars in the house. So I can see that we have a lot of reputable scholars who are also part of this. So it makes my task more difficult, because the people who are in the house, many of them are well known academic scholars too. So, but it will be, I believe it will be a very interesting session, interacting with them all. So, from the topic, publishing Q1 and Q2 papers using systematic reviews and meta-analysis, we are all familiar with, most of us are familiar with the act of publishing. But before we go on, I want to ask, is there anybody who has less than a master's degree in the house? Because I can see a lot of people who are PhD holders already in the house, but I want to have an idea of the composition of this class so that it can guide them how technical some of the concepts are going to be dealt with. So I don't know if we have anybody with less than a master degrees. I would love to know. Maybe if you can perhaps note in the chat box or raise your hand so that I just want to have an idea, because it will help us a lot. The experience already gathered by those who are PhDs and above, postdocs, may not be comparable to that gathered by those who are yet to obtain their master's degrees. So, in case such persons are in the house, I would love to have an idea of it. Okay, let me see. Okay, no, I'm talking about people without PhDs. I know most of people in the house have PhDs, so that's why I decided to, yeah, okay. So I want to have an idea of the number of those who are okay. Basically, I think I now know that we have some individuals who are without. So the discussion should cater for all these categories. Okay. Okay, so we talked about publishing Q1 and Q2 papers through systematic reviews and meta-analysis. So basically, we all know the reasons why we publish, although we have been facing this challenge of publish to perish and the like. So many publications are just rolling out just to get promotion, basically to get promotion, especially in our own part of the world. Amidst the challenge of funding and the likes. But generally, globally, part of the reasons why we publish, just like my supervisor will say, to share your knowledge. So, but apart from that, you also have, you want to gain recognition in the global academic community for your work, because a work that is not published remains there, nobody knows about it, and it has no impact. So basically, we want to gain recognition. In some cases, like my university, you have to publish a number of papers to graduate, or maybe you want to seek for some academic positions, and of course, promotion that we have been talking about. So these are some of the reasons. And in the process of doing this, there are a lot of pitfalls, one of which is publishing in predatory journals. So we have had many colleagues at the beginning of their career, they make the mistake because they could not discern, they could not differentiate between good journals and the predatory ones. So but they felt they needed to publish, and once they see any journal online, they just submit, and within 7 days or thereabout, the paper is accepted, and before you know it, the paper is published. And because of that, such individuals have that belief that they are also scholars publishing, unknowing to them that globally such publications are not recognized. So that is why the title of this workshop that has to do with Q1 and Q2 publishing. So it's something every scholar must take note of. Although for me, even if your publication does not make Q1 or Q2, there are still numerous reputable journals. For example, a younger friend messaged me on LinkedIn recently, and he was asking, he said he has a paper that I wanted to publish that there is PSC paper. I wanted to publish it in Wiley in a reputable journal that he has been having challenge that how can he get. I said it depends on the quality of your work, and there are numerous journals out there that are reputable that you can publish. It's not compulsory you go for the big names. So, but the bottom line is that you want to publish something that is recognized and that is good enough. So that is it. So the reason why we need to publish Q1 and Q2 journal, Q2 articles, I think is very clear, and it is worth the while because of the numerous benefits that come from it. Okay, so again, I think I've mentioned something about predatory journals and all that. So talking about the quality of the journals, most of us know because most of us are in this business. We know that we have some journals that we call Scopus Index, non-Scopus Index, Web of Science, and the likes. So most of the time, when you get your paper in all these databases, then you are regarded as publishing something good. Although not all Scopus index paper journals are of that quality that everybody desire, but at least it is a measure to know the quality of your publications. So just like I mentioned the other time, we have some journals that are predatory. They keep inviting you to submit and the likes, but there's no academic rigor in assessing those papers. And the disadvantage of this is that as a scholar, if you keep publishing in predatory journals, you remain with your basic knowledge. You cannot learn anything new from high-level scholars in the field because there will be minimal criticism, constructive criticism, and improvement of your work before publication. And that is why it's important to run away from those predatory journals. Okay, so because we are talking about publishing, I just want to use this because Stephen Covey, in his book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, he said that one of these habits is that you should have the end in mind. So the end product of this workshop should be what? To have good quality publications based on a meta-analysis. And this is an example of one of the ones I tried my hands on that came out early this year. So this one, for example, talking about probiotics, how probiotics help to improve growth, immune response, and disease resistance in tilapia. So then again, this reminds me of another question I wanted to ask. I can see that we have some people in the house who are in the biological sciences, perhaps environmental sciences, health sciences. So I don't know, do we have anybody in the engineering? Okay, I know perhaps we have educationists too in the house. Then what about the engineering? I don't know if there's anybody who is in the engineering field in the house. I want to know, please. If there is, kindly indicate in the chat box so that I can take note of that. So I'll be checking from time to time. Then if your discipline is has not been mentioned, then I will appreciate if you can also indicate. So maybe later we'll come back to these publications. So the reason why systematic review is coming up here now is because systematic review is like a prerequisite to meta-analysis, although not 100%, but the procedures you take, the procedures you follow to achieve a systematic review are the same procedures you need to follow to achieve a meta-analysis. It's just that after you have ended up with the systematic review aspect, you now want to go a step further. That is when you end up with what? A meta-analysis. And that is why it's important to quickly look at some of the concepts relating to systematic reviews. But the aspects that has to do with the main synthesis of the sources when it comes to systematic reviews will not be treated in detail. So we just go straight to meta-analysis once we get to that level. Economics, engineering, economics, medicine, finance. Okay. At least I have a feel of the participants in the house. Okay, so of course, when you say systematic, we just want to do it according to a fixed plan or a method, a known method. You are following a particular procedure to end up at your final destination, and that is what we refer to as a systematic review. So we have many other reviews out there, but this one is a high-level overview of primary research on a particular research question. So most of the time, systematic reviews are more specific than the other types of reviews that we have. So then after you follow a systematic approach, then you also critically appraise the sources that you have actually gathered. So the review answers specific research questions. Then it also involves explicit methods. Those methods should be well stated, should be clear. And also the literature involved must be comprehensive. They should be as to a large extent, most of the literature addressing that particular problem has to be included in that systematic. And the same thing for meta-analysis. And that's why I'm going back to systematic reviews, talking about systematic review. So all the literature, what I usually tell people is that if after, at the end of the day, when you write your paper, you now search, you do a search on Google or any database regarding that topic, any paper that comes up at that time must have been included in your work. So if you are able to search for those papers and you are still finding 2, 3, 4, 5 papers addressing that your topic and are not included in your own paper, then there's a problem somewhere, and that is why it has to be what? Comprehensive. Then there should be a critical appraisal of individual studies to synthesize the various studies qualitatively. So again, systematic review is more of qualitative synthesis, while meta-analysis is more of what? A quantitative synthesis. So what's the meta-analysis? As I just said, meta-analysis is a secondary analysis of findings of 2 or more primary research studies. So you have a number of research studies addressing a particular issue, and you want to know, you want to analyze, you want to take a decision to know if really the results, or to know the direction to which the results are actually tending. So it involves pulling data. So instead of going to the lab and taking some measurements, the data source in this case are already published works. So that will be the lab. That will be the dry lab where you need to what? Extract those data in order to come up with a single summary measure. Again, most of the time, for you to communicate the outcome of the meta-analysis, there are some graphical measures that are used. One is the forest plot, we call it forest plot, and we also have the funnel plot. But most of this presentation will focus on the forest plot. So then, as I said earlier, a meta-analysis is a quantitative review, more of quantitative than the qualitative aspect. So what's the origin of meta-analysis? So he said it was coined by a statistician in 1976. And he said it is a statistical analysis of a large collection of analysis results from individual studies for the purpose of integrating the findings. So why do we need them? So the reason why, again, talking about the origin of systematic reviews and meta-analysis, it was initially used mainly in health sciences. So the real owners or the originators of this approach are actually the health scientists in the medical field. And the reason is because when they carry out a number of trials, maybe they're trying some drugs or medicines on patients. So at times they want to discern, okay, which of these interventions are actually more effective. So sometimes if we have two different drugs, we have two antibiotics, for example, maybe penicillin and one other one. So people have been taking them to solve some particular health bacterial problems. And both of them in different studies, they are giving some results, but we are not sure which of them is more effective. So researchers may want to know, okay, between these two particular interventions, which one can we say scientifically or based on data that is more effective? And that is why the protocol is usually very strict, because if you want to look for the more effective one, it will make sense if you bring together different age categories of people. You can the impact of that particular medicine on children may be different from the impact on adults, and that is why there is a kind of rigor in deciding how the protocol will look like. But the bottom line is that you want to confirm that, okay, between these two particular medicines, which one is actually more effective based on data. And that is why it's important. So it helps to facilitate rational decision making, because if you are not sure of the outcome, or maybe the government or a particular agency wants to take a decision, okay, which one of these medicines should we endorse? Which one should we endorse for people to take? So they can take this decision based on the meta-analysis that is being performed to identify the best alternative. Then also, researchers and policymakers, of course, there are a lot of information out there, just like I've said. So they are being published on a daily basis. Recently, I undertook a systematic review and meta-analysis paper. And initially, when I started, the idea was to a kind of look at an overview. But I realized that the number of available papers are just too many. So I had to continue to narrow down my focus so that I can have a sizable number of papers that will not be too many or too few for me to carry out that review. So because there are too many papers that have been published on a daily basis in quality journals, a lot. So then, apart from that, so over 20 million citation, for example, in PubMed, a lot of random controlled trial studies have been published. Then also, it's very impossible to consider all relevant individual primary researches in decision making, and that's why systematic review and meta-analysis are usually more focused. Then it also enables practitioners to keep up to date with evidence accumulating in the field. So it is usually very, very useful. Again, looking at the hierarchy of evidence, we have systematic reviews and meta-analysis at the top. So I have two interpretations for this particular pyramid. So for this pyramid, you see that at the bottom, we have case reports, opinion papers, letters to editors, and so on, animal trials, in vitro studies, cross-sectional studies, case control studies, cohort studies, randomized control trials. And the highest level of evidence that has been recognized is actually meta-analysis and systematic review. And that is why today, when you look at the volume of papers that are published out there, the percentage of systematic reviews or meta-analysis is still very low compared to the other types of papers that are published on a daily basis. And that is why, again, my interpretation to this pyramid, again, apart from having meta-analysis and systematic reviews as the strongest type of evidence we can have, I also see it as a place that is reserved, because we only have few papers, few works that use that particular approach to publish. And that is why, if one is able to master this approach, although it's a rigorous one, so it's also rigorous, but if one is able to master the dynamics, the procedures, it may be an opportunity to publish quality papers. And again, there is still a lot of gap in that area because the number of studies that use meta-analysis are very few. So people are writing a lot of reviews, a lot of non-systematic review and the like. But meta-analysis, precisely, there are still a very, very few number of publications that actually use this approach. And that's why if you decide to do it and you do it right, there is a very high chance that the paper will be what? Accepted. Okay, again, why not traditional reviews? I've said some of it. So traditional reviews, although they are also very, very useful, but we may not be able to use them to take some decisions because there is no specification of the methods you are using. Anybody can just wake up and just bring some papers together and just write it and it will get published. Although these days, reviews are very difficult to publish, especially in high quality journals, because you really need to prove beyond reasonable doubt that you actually know what you're talking about and you're actually contributing something significant to the field. But then, so apart from the fact that systematic reviews or meta-analysis they are a higher level of evidence, if one is able to master it again, it's also easier to publish with them compared to the conventional review. Most of the time, conventional reviews are easier published when they are invited. When maybe there are calls for papers and all that, they are invited. The publishers or the journal already identified some experts. They would like to write those reviews. So that may be easier to get accepted. But if you just wake up one morning and say, I want to write a review on so thing. So there are many things they will look at. One of it, again, one is that, are you an expert in the field for you to submit that kind of a review? But if it's a meta-analysis, the numbers don't lie. So it's easier for you to be accepted than when you just wake up and write just a conventional review that we all know. So to perform systematic review, there are so many steps that are involved. So depending on the rigor you want to follow, there are a number of steps. And again, they may be performed by a small team of individuals with various skills, including search experts, maybe librarians, statistical experts, and subject area experts. So most of the time, I've seen that a number of journals, when you submit systematic reviews or meta-analysis, they want to see that it's performed by more than one individual. However, this paper I published in 2024, I used an approach that I think it worked. Then again, another thing about meta-analysis for now is because there are still few number of meta-analysis out there. And sometimes some of those journals, when they see a good review job, some of those steps in the meta-analysis, they may ignore it. They may ignore some of the steps. If they see the outcome of the meta-analysis and they feel it's a good work, they may ignore some of those steps. For example, the aspect of being performed by more than one individual. Like in my own paper, what I did was to come up with another approach. The approach was that instead of having two, because it's even difficult to get two people, except if you're very lucky, maybe you have a colleague, you're working in the same area, and it's easy for both of you to work together on the systematic review. But in some cases, you may not have that opportunity. So what you can also do, just like I did, is to show the rigor in your search. And I was able to show a rigor in my search such that I told them that I did my search 2 times, of which I really did. So the first time I searched for the papers, I got the results. Then after that, after I screened and arrived at my final number of articles. Then again, After a while, I went again and repeated the search one more time, trying to see if I could get new articles. So at the end of the day, I now brought together the outcome of both searches. And I reported it this way and it was accepted. So, but if you have the opportunity of having colleagues with whom you could work together on this systematic review, I think it will make it a lot easier. So just like I said, there are we have little differences between different types of reviews. And when you look at systematic reviews and meta-analysis here, when we talk about speed, you can see that systematic review and meta-analysis are slow compared to the other ones. We have the rapid review, scoping review, narrative review, and the like. Then also, systematic review and meta-analysis, they have more explicit methods that will be reported. Then again, the risk of bias is decreased because you are using evidence. You are collecting evidence-based compared to the subjectivity you experience in the narrative review and the likes. Then also again, systematic review and meta-analysis are usually comprehensive, just like I noted earlier, that all possible articles related to that topic should have been included as much as possible. So although there may be room to miss out a few of them, but if most of the articles that are supposed to be there are not there, then it rings a bell. So I think we can now emphasize this over and over again, that the objectives should be clearly predefined. We also need to have the inclusion and exclusion criteria, the method, then a systematic search that attempts to identify all studies that would meet the eligibility criteria, and also assessment of the validity of the findings, and finally, systematic synthesis. So these have been mentioned earlier. So one of the methods out there that is very popular for systematic reviews and meta-analysis is what we call PRISMA. So PRISMA refers to preferred reporting items for systematic reviews and meta-analysis. So it's a checklist that also talks about different criteria and different aspects of the systematic reviews. Those things that must be met for your systematic review to be acceptable or meta-analysis to be acceptable. Although it has been said that if you can meet a large percentage of those criteria in the checklist, then it's okay. One may not be able to meet 100% of the criteria, but if you can meet most of the criteria in the PRISMA checklist, then you are good to go. So you can Google PRISMA checklist. Once you Google it, you can download the checklist and you see all the sections and the criteria in the checklist. For example, under the methods here, talk about eligibility criteria. It says specify the inclusion and exclusion criteria for the review and how studies were grouped for the synthesis. All these will be elaborated in the methodology section. Again, specify all databases, registers, websites, organizations, reference, and so on and so forth. So all these has to be taken note of while preparing the systematic review and meta-analysis. Okay, this is just an overview of some of the stages. So at the beginning, you want to define a research story review question. What problem do you want to address? Again, you have to develop the review protocol, identify the relevant studies, then assess the eligibility of those studies, then extract the data. Again, you may also need to assess the quality of the studies, then synthesize, then of course come up with your article. So all these, we are going to talk about them in brief. So we are going to start with formulating the question, and this is very important at the beginning to formulate a question for your systematic review. And anytime I write systematic review, I'm also referring to meta-analysis. So they are like twin brothers. So to formulate a question that you want to address. Then also, then as I'm talking, I would want us to start thinking about something, a question, maybe in our different fields that we think we may want to address based on my explanation about what a meta-analysis is, or a systematic review is, and why we need them. So you may have a particular area, a particular aspect of your research that has been well researched, and there are conflicting information or inconclusive information about the effectiveness of certain interventions. So you can now start thinking about, okay, what can I come up with as a question? And this can be your first systematic review paper or meta-analysis. Just like the first time my first systematic review paper meta-analysis, I also attended a training, and it was at that training I was able to formulate my first systematic review and meta-analysis idea, and I eventually got it published. So who knows? This can be the opportunity to start your first systematic review and meta-analysis paper. So get a question from your field. Then the next thing is to develop the protocol, conduct research, select studies. I think I mentioned all these earlier. So you may need to transition from a general topic to a clear research problem. So if maybe you are lost, you don't really know what's happening in that field, because sometimes people who are actually really engaged in the field, they would know what's happening in the field. But if perhaps you wish to write a meta-analysis or systematic review on an area and you are not really very well aware of the current trend, so you may need to look at the general area at first before you now narrow it down into a clear research problem that is unique. So, and that will help you to identify the review topic, formulate your research problem, then also look at the potential data sources. So, and also maybe you want to include some members, some colleagues to work on the review together. Then also at the beginning, you need to forecast the structure of the review. Then the checklist we just mentioned, the Prisma checklist, you also need to look at it and try to align with the requirements. So to formulate a problem, you have to ask yourself some questions. One, what problem are you trying to address by conducting the review? So the research problem should be structured and unambiguous. It should be a structured and unambiguous question. So then again, the question should not be changed, although that's why I highlighted this. The question may be changed. It depends, because when you get some new evidences, you may decide to change your direction. That is one thing about this review. At the beginning, you may have an idea, and you may end up with another idea, looking at the reality in the literature. So, for example, this meta-analysis I displayed at the beginning, I started with another idea, and I ended up with that idea. And it was because of the reality of I found in the literature. That was why I decided to go in that direction. So it's possible. So you may need to start all over again after you have seen some reality. But if you are actually well acquainted with what's happening in the field, you may not need to go that route. But sometimes you may need to clearly understand what's happening before you are able to follow the correct direction. Okay, so formulating the question, I think this is the most important aspect at first, because if you can get a very good question, it's like a foundation on which you are going to build most of the other work you are going to be doing. So just like I said, you need to be familiar with the literature. You're either familiar by practice, maybe based on a lot of publications you have been doing in that area, or you sit down and read. So it is not, there's no quick fix. One has to read and understand what's happening. But if you don't understand it, at the end of the day, the reviewers will just throw back your paper at you. that you are not aware with the current realities in the field. So you are writing a review. So basically, although I mean for high quality journals, so there may be some journals that may accept some types of, so still sometimes it's fine depending on one's level in academics and what one is pursuing. So one needs to understand what's happening. Then again, what has been done and how you can contribute to the existing academic debate. So you want to look at what people have been doing. So what is your own contribution? Again, for me, before I start any systematic review or meta-analysis, I try to check if people have done something similar, because it would be counterproductive if you start a systematic review without checking first, and you have downloaded a lot of articles, you have read, you have come up with a framework and so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, one day you're just searching, you just saw one systematic review similar to what you are trying to do. It will be a very, very painful experience. And that's why it's always good at first to check, search to see if there is any systematic review of meta-analysis area. And even if there is, help you to tailor your own focus. Maybe the one that has been published actually focuses on another aspect. You can look at something more specific and build on that existing systematic review. So, or meta-analysis. So it is very beneficial to know this in formulating your question. Okay, these are some examples of systematic reviews. Okay. So for example, let's look at this one. This one says use of insects for fish and poultry compound feed in sub-Saharan Africa. So this one is very, very specific. So it's talking about use of insects for fish and poultry compound feed in sub-Saharan Africa. So we have the location, the population, and what? The intervention. So the intervention here, we have the insects, then we have the population, fish and poultry. Then the outcome, yes, we want to look at how effective it's going to be. Then the location is where sub-Saharan Africa. So these are the components that must be in the what? In the question that you are trying to formulate. This one is saying unemployment among young people and mental health is systematic review. Okay, so this one is focusing on young people. Then again, the intervention is looking at the impact of unemployment, and perhaps, yes, looking at the impact of unemployment on the mental health of young people. So these are some interesting questions. So all these questions, they were built on what we call the PICO model. Although we have many variations of this PICO model, but this PICO seems to be one of the most popular. So PICO, of course, as you can see, we have the population, intervention, comparison or comparator, and outcome. So this model is a useful framework to break down the research question for a systematic review or meta-analysis, basically. So the good question should follow this model, although sometimes not completely, and that is why we have some variations of this model. So the population, the group we are trying to study, just like maybe the fish and poultry or young people, what's the population? It has to be specific. And they also refer to the test subjects or patients, as the case may be, depending on your field. Then also intervention, what are you exposing them to, or what impact of what are you actually trying to measure that affects them? So you look at that, or the exposure or experimental factor you want to study, then again, the comparison, what are you comparing it with? Because in meta-analysis now, you need to compare most of the time. You want to compare the intervention with the control, or intervention A with intervention B. And also you want to look at the outcome. What has been the outcome? Okay, you want to look at the effectiveness, efficacy, the outcome of those interventions. So these are things, ingredients that must be in the question we are trying to formulate. So as I'm talking again, I want to remind you that you should start thinking about a question that meets all these criteria, that is a potential for a meta-analysis, subject to what? When you check the literature and you confirm that this particular idea is unique, that has not been published, nobody has done something similar, or even if people have done something similar, you are taking a different dimension to it. So we have some example question. Okay, does cognitive behavioral therapy prevent depression in individuals who have had a stroke? So this one is specific to individuals with stroke. That's the population. Okay. Then cognitive behavioral therapy is the intervention, and the outcome is for it to prevent what? Depression. So you can compare it with other therapies too. This one is cognitive behavioral therapy. Maybe you want to compare it with the no therapy, or you want to compare with other types of what? Therapy in a meta-analysis. So it's also possible. So population is stroke patients, cognitive therapy, and so on and so forth. So this is very, very important. Then we have alternative models too. We have so we have Eclipse, Spice, Spider, and so on and so forth. They are all saying the same thing. It's just that it depends on the nature of the area one is actually working in. So this one talks about population or problem, exposures, and outcome. So this one is not talking about comparator, because in some cases you may not be comparing with any other thing. So this one is not, it's only talking about PEO, population, exposure, and outcome. And also we have SPICE, setting, population or perspective, intervention, comparison, and evaluation, and so on and so forth. But for the purpose of this master class, I think we should focus on PICO, population, intervention, comparator, and outcome. Okay, so I think I've been introducing this activity that I want you to identify a broad question and how you can narrow it down based on what we have dealt with so far. Then also, I also want you to identify the PICO components of that particular question you have identified for a systematic review or meta-analysis, as the case may be. Then maybe you want to discuss the potential limitations of that question. We can discuss that. So I would appreciate if I can have maybe one or two questions from the house, so that we can look at it quickly before we move on. Then if time and resource were not a limitation, consider how useful the answer to that question will be. So it shows this one is just telling you a motivation. It's a motivation for carrying out the review. So if there is if it's going to be very, very useful, then it means it's a very good question that you have actually formulated. So I don't know. Do we have any? Okay, maybe I'll give us some minutes. I'll continue the presentation, or let me give us 2 minutes to ruminate about it and try to come up. I just need one or two, and we'll look at it, then we'll forge ahead and come up with a question that could metamorphose into a full-fledged systematic review and meta-analysis, or systematic review as the case may be. Okay, so if there is any, I'll pause for some minutes and allow you to come up with something, and after a few minutes, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, then I'll ask if we have any log to look at. Is that okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, Dr. Saba, I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. So yeah. I'll be waiting. I want to pause for some minutes so that we can get
Hello, doctor. Hello, doctor.
Hello, can I hear you?
Yeah, can I make my expression verbally or I have to send in a text chat box?
Okay, I think you may send it in chat box, then you may also, so that I can have it documented, so I can also refer to it.
Okay.
You can post it in chat box, then we'll talk about it.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Okay, okay, somebody is asking that a PO is used for qualitative research and people who, sorry, PO is qualitative both times. Okay, anyway, PICO, just like I said, population, intervention, comparison, and outcome. So it's more of quantitative. It's more of quantitative. So, and when you look at it, you see that most of the time, it has to do with experimental research, when you're trying to compare the number of interventions. Then PEO, maybe when there is no comparator, just like I said, when there's nothing to compare. So, but this may be limited to systematic review. It may not proceed to meta-analysis stage. That's what I'm saying. That depending on your question and what you are trying to work on, you can tailor your model in line with your question. So that's what I'm saying. So, but if you still wish to, because for me, I'm more familiar with PICO than most of the other ones, and I think PICO is applicable to most fields. But if, for example, you are considering a topic that may not fit in well with PICO, then maybe you can consider other more relevant options. But I'm not as familiar with those other options as I am with PICO. But we can still discuss it further. Okay, so I'm still expecting can we have a hands-on workshop where we learn practically how to carry out? Yes, this is what we are doing now. That's what we are doing, actually. That's what we are doing, because this is just a preamble. Although your request, we may not be able to get a paper ready for publication, where you can kickstart the process, because semantic review is not a day's job. It's not something you just sit down in one place in one day and you come up with a paper and that's all. No. It won't work that way. Okay, I can see a response: the effectiveness of breastfeeding in child nutritional status. Yes, this is a nice one. Maybe we should start with this one. So sorry, please, who posted this? I want the person to talk so that we can start discussing this problem. Hello. The effectiveness of breastfeeding in child nutritional status. Is that Dr.
Hello, good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir. Dr.
Motilewa.
Okay, yes, Dr. Motilewa. Thank you very much for this. So it's quite interesting. So I just wanted to identify the PICO elements in this topic or question that you have just answered.
Okay.
So the population.
The population, I'll say children.
Children, okay, thank you.
Oh, yes, but specifically children under 5.
Okay. What's the intervention?
The intervention is breastfeeding.
Breastfeeding. Okay.
Yeah.
Then the outcome is the nutritional status. So most of the time when you talk about a comparator, is more or less you are comparing it with no intervention, or maybe maybe you want
Yes,
to look,
no intervention.
or maybe you want to compare it with maybe breastfeeding versus maybe milk.
Those who are not breastfed.
Animal, yes, animal milk. Maybe you want to compare that, so that can be also be the comparison. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I think this is a very good problem or question to ask. However, to know if this question can proceed for a review or meta-analysis, one has to check the literature to see the direction in which people have gone, and that will determine either to fine-tune this or to continue with this. So I don't know, sir, maybe you can also do a quick, maybe again next week, let's maintain this topic. So against next week, you may want to do some Google search, Google Scholar search, or Scopus, or whatever, to actually see if there had been any systematic review of methodologies in this area, or perhaps there have been other ones that looked at other areas, or something has been done exactly in this area, and how can you fine-tune it to make yours a unique one. So I think that would be nice. Okay, we have one already. Thank you, sir. We have one already. Can we get one more? Then we move on. Okay, I think that should be okay because of time. I think we should move on. So we already have an example of a good question. So if this question is answered, okay, I can see one more here. Okay, somebody said, can the pico model be used in fields such as agric extension? Why not? It can definitely be used. What you just need to do is to identify, you need to identify a problem that you want to solve with your review, or with your meta-analysis. Now, okay, people have been doing a lot of research has been going out there on a particular thing. Maybe, for example, extension. Maybe you want to look at some intervention for farmers. Maybe government is giving farmers some fertilizers, for example, and as a result, or maybe a particular type of fertilizer is being given to them, and when they use it, but the caveat is that there must be publications that have analyzed all these things and have come out with their result. And that's why you must look for a question that you can actually answer through already published research. Okay? Because somebody is saying that how has the Disability Act influenced employment opportunities and workplace experiences for PWDs? Sorry, what's PWDs?
People living with disabilities.
Person living with disabilities.
Okay, sorry. Okay, persons living with
disabilities.
Okay, thank you very much. This also sounds like a very good question. So then I want to call the owner of this question to identify the PICO elements so that we can move on.
So the population will be people living with disabilities, Abi?
Okay, yes.
Then the comparison will be, the intervention will be Disability Act.
Okay.
So the comparison will be, there's no outcome there. I can't.
There's outcome, employment opportunities. The outcome is employment opportunities. Yes, employment opportunities. Then comparison, of course, you either compare with another
work experiences.
And work experience. So you either compare it with absence of the act, when the act has not been applied, or another act, another similar act. How is it? So you want to look at both. So, but as I said earlier, the caveat is that you must have publications that have assessed all this. So that is your pool of data. That's where you can get your data from. Okay. We have another one here: waste management and educational awareness in urban wear. In the urban area, maybe. Yes, I like this question. I want us to trash this one. Waste management and educational awareness in. I want the complete version of this question, and also I want the poster
I've done it.
to. Okay, where is it?
Yeah. I don't know if I wrote it out. What are the effects of
Okay,
educational
okay,
awareness
okay,
on waste management in urban centers?
okay. Thank you.
Sorry for the
Effects,
typo.
effect of educational awareness on waste management in urban centers. Okay, what is the population? When you say urban center, it's too broad. You must identify a population you want to measure. You want to measure that awareness on. So in urban centers, who are you looking at? Are you looking at the stakeholders? Are you looking at the farmers? Are you looking at the students? Are you looking at the academics? Do you get it? So you need to be more specific regarding your population.
Okay, so the reason I chose that is that the location where I am is the municipalities that manages the waste.
Okay.
So because you say urban center now, it's the municipality that will still go to every urban to collect waste. So that's why I chose that general one.
Yes, I understand. But for it to be
much more
good, yes, for it to be easier for you
okay,
to
let me
carry out
use
review.
housing units then. Let me just use
okay, maybe on the households.
Complex, maybe, yeah, within households, urban households.
Okay. So what are you going to be measuring? Who are you going to be interviewing? We need to identify that. Who are you going to be interviewing? As in, sorry.
Okay, so this is if we are doing systematic.
No, you may not interview. Sorry, who would have been the subject of interview? As in the publications. Maybe some people have carried out some studies. They have looked at.
Okay, so this can be the elite, because that was the preliminary. It was seen that the elites are the ones that actually don't abide oftentimes with this issue of waste. Then again, I'll say the elites.
Okay, thank you. Then again, apart from identifying the elites, it must also have been that there have been publications addressing this particular population. Okay, there must have been publications measuring this, trying to look at educational awareness, focusing on that particular population. So if you have a number of publications doing that, then you are good to go. But if you check and you don't have publications, although you have a good question, but you don't have the source of your data, then you cannot proceed. So long as you are able to formulate a good question, you also need to be able to what? Identify the source of your data. Okay, this thing I want to measure. We have primary research works that have been done to measure them. Because what you want to do is to confirm what they have done. You want to confirm what they have done, either qualitatively or quantitatively using meta-analysis approach. So you want to confirm, maybe they measure something, maybe awareness, maybe they have a scale of that awareness, they put some numbers and they reported that, or maybe they have some measures of that awareness and they're able to come out with, or maybe it can also be count, like, okay, how many people are aware about this? So all those data, you will need them from individual studies. And that is why, apart from having that question,
sorry, doctor.
you also need to have looked at the literature to see if your question actually situates within what has been published in the recent time. Okay. Okay, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I want to ask, should you now do a preliminary search and you find out that
we are still coming to that? Yes, absolutely. You may need to do a preliminary
if you
search.
don't have enough data, like enough research articles that was already done, does that mean you still need to drop those questions?
Yes, you need to fine-tune your question and try to address an area where you get more publication, because we are talking about a publication that will be acceptable. So if you have too few studies, then some journals may not want to accept that. this is not something serious, not something so important. That's why you don't have so many journals, except for maybe, for example, during the COVID era, when people are rapidly publishing. So maybe if it were to be at that time, you just pick up some papers and you quickly run your meta-analysis, maybe on 10 papers, it may be accepted. But now that everything is relaxed, if you pick some papers on COVID, in fact, they will expect more from you because too many publications have gone out there on COVID. So I think that clarifies it. I think we should move on. So just like you said, one may need to do a preliminary check to actually understand what is happening in order to guide that your question you're actually formulating. Okay. I think we have been able to deal with all this. Okay, so determining the scope is a decision that needs to consider a lot of factors. One of it is that you want to look at the relevance of your question or the potential impact of that question you are asking. Then again, you want to support the theoretical or biological or epidemiological information, or the potential generalizability and validity of the answers to the question, then available resources. Among the available resources, just like we said, the available publications too, they are part of the available resources. Again, maybe the time, maybe you need to do it more rapidly. So you need to be more focused on your question. And also available resources may also mean availability to subscribe databases, because most of the time you need to use multiple databases for your search in order to prove the rigor that you took in arriving at the publications you are actually using in your meta-analysis and systematic review. So you have to look at available resources. What databases can I use? Do I have opportunity to use subscribed databases, or what is only available to me is Google Scholar or what have you? So all these things have to be considered. So then again, you also have to check, just like I said, if anything has been published on your particular topic, because for every researcher, as you are thinking about something, other researchers in your field are also thinking. They may have done something similar to what you are thinking, and that's why the what do we call it? The genuineness of your own work or the uniqueness is to do something that is different from what they have done. So we have been able to trash the issue of formulating the question. So the second thing is to develop your protocol. Your protocol, you have the search protocol, the inclusion and exclusion criteria, study selection, data extraction, assessment of study quality, data synthesis. All these things must be reported, how you did them. Although for me, I think the complete version of this protocol can only be gotten at the end of the review process. You may not be able to get a complete version. You can have a proposed version at the beginning, but as you go along the review process, there will be need for some modifications, some additions, and you may need to change some things, just like I said earlier, along the line. So, but it's very important to have a protocol at the beginning. So you have to designate your inclusion and exclusion criteria, just like we said the other time, the urban centers. So you want to look at, okay, in the urban centers, what am I including? What am I excluding? You must be able to note that in the methodology. And also the search strategy. The keywords you are going to be using for the search, although most of the keywords will come from the problem you have actually formulated. So you have to come up with the synonyms of the basic keywords, and then also the synonyms. And it also depends on the database you are using. How go about the search also depends on the database you are using. So all these things will be done in this stage or step of the meta-analysis process. So once you have been able to get your very good question, you have been able to specify your inclusion and exclusion criteria, you come up with your search strategies and keyword, then selection criteria. For example, you can say, okay, I want to look at studies that have been published in the last 10 years, the last decade. And then there must be a reason. You must justify the reason why you are picking the last decade. You must justify. Okay, looking at the trend of research, the last decade has been the most impactful. A lot of works have been published and a lot of information is out there. There is a need to, these are some of the things you are going to say in your problem statement, in your introduction. So there's a need to come up with a thorough systematic review to actually identify the main issues and the possible solution, depending on what you are looking at. So there will be what? The criteria. Maybe you want to limit it to a particular duration, or you want to limit it to a particular country, location, or you want to limit it to a particular organism, or a particular age category, or a particular gender. All these things must be what considered. And also, again, it's very good to use good quality studies. Don't go for predatory. In as much as you are not supposed to publish in predatory journals, you also need to avoid using the low quality journals. Although fine, some of them have good information, but they have been published in a wrong place. Yes, it happens at times. So in some cases, if you look at the quality of the work from your own perspective, and you see that this work is very good, it would be nice not to include this one. You may decide to, okay, include one or two, but it is advisable more often than not to avoid including those predatory works, or even works that you find out that there are a lot of problems with the methodology. So all these things, you can state them in your methodology so that you excluded some studies based on so and so reasons from your meta-analysis or systematic review. Again, you have to state your data synthesis method. How did you synthesize the data? How did you collect information? Did you use Microsoft Excel to get the information, or you used other tools like Ryan and some other tools like that? So all these things must be stated. And then also, how do you intend to disseminate your results? Are you limiting yourself to only systematic review, or you want to proceed to meta-analysis stage? Okay, so in some cases, some people publish their protocol. For me, I've never published my own protocol, but mostly in the health sciences, it is more sensitive because they are dealing with human life. So in most cases, they want them to publish their protocol because their work is even more sensitive. In some cases, the studies they are looking at are studies that actually used human subjects, and perhaps the studies collected sensitive information from those individuals. So if possible, it would be nice to also publish the protocol. It also adds to the quality of the meta-analysis or the systematic review. Okay, so for the inclusion and exclusion criteria, so it has to be well defined, well spelled out. So this one, it will make it more explicit to the viewers. I'll give you an example from, I think, let me quickly give that example from my publication. Yeah, I think it is quite instructive. So in the meta-analysis, this one is specifically to meta-analysis also, although it also applies to systematic. I want to use the one for meta-analysis as an example. Okay, so yeah. Yes. So you can see here, this is the methodology section. So and under the meta-analysis, the aspect I really want to look at is I think around here. Yes, here. So here, part of those things that were stated here in this methodology, I don't know if you can see if it is clear. Okay, so
It's okay. It's okay.
okay, it's okay, okay. So here, we said in studies with more than one concentration of the treatment probiotic, because when you start looking at those papers, you start seeing different approaches that different researchers have used in carrying out their studies, because different researchers have different ingenuity. Then again, some of them have tailored their research designs along what has been done, what's already in the literature. So sometimes they try to modify some aspects of their design to make their work novel or unique. Okay, so during the process, in studies with more than one concentration of the treatment probiotic, because sometimes some studies will just administer only one treatment and compare it with the control, and that's all, and look at the outcome. And some studies will come up with more than one treatment. You can have three different treatments. So how are you dealing with all these dynamics in the different publications you are working with? So we said a treatment that was identified as the best for growth and nutrient utilization, immunity, and disease resistance was chosen. So this one has knocked out, that's giving a kind of direction that, okay, in the face of some discrepancies, how did you treat these areas to show us that what you did is actually reliable? So was chosen as the subject of comparison with the control. So this one, I think this one is very clear. Again, in cases where the challenge concentration, because the fish, after it got the probiotic treatment, it was challenged with bacteria. So when the concentration was more than one treatment, again, because some studies only challenge with only one concentration, while some other studies will use different concentration. Again, the treatment with the highest concentration was chosen for comparison. Then again, in cases where different durations of dietary probiotics were administered, the duration closer to those of other studies was selected. And in the case of this particular author, where 2 months was selected as against 1 or 8 months, in line with what is obtainable in many other studies. Then also, where different densities of tilapia were used, as in this study, the density closer to what is generally obtainable in another study was selected. So this one, we want to use it to establish the similarity in the studies we're actually assessing. Because if eventually the studies you're assessing, you want to meta-analyze, are too different, then there will be a question on your result. And that is why one needs to identify all these areas of discrepancies and try to address them and make sure that one puts them in the methodology section so that the reviewer can see that this particular author has actually done his homework. Okay, so when you are including the the different studies, most of the time, depending on the type of study, your question that you formulated, so you try to include those studies that actually have similar patterns of design, similar design patterns, so that at the end of the day, when you are doing the meta-analysis, your work can be more homogeneous than heterogeneous, because although it's acceptable to use, because at the end of the day, when you do the meta-analysis, a value showing heterogeneity will come up. And if the value is very high, then it gives an idea that the studies are more heterogeneous than homogeneous. And if the value is lower, then it adds more credence to the homogeneity of those studies. And that's why one needs to consider this and include studies more homogeneous than heterogeneous. Then population, I think we have said a lot about population for now. So I think this one is clear enough. The aspect of population. Then the search strategy. Talk about search strategy. You need the basic terminologies, basic keywords from the problem you have formulated. So these are going to be used in different search databases. So different search databases, and again, all these keywords will be formulated based on the PICO. So the keywords and their synonyms will be formulated, and this will be used in different ways in different databases. Google Scholar has its own approach, Scopus, Science Direct, Wiley, and many others. So all these databases, for those in medicine, we have PubMed. So these are very, very good. And one thing you should do to reduce the burden, because sometimes for newbies, maybe people who are just graduating, it can be overwhelming when you are searching for articles. So for me, what I do mostly is to read the titles. I don't go into the articles. First of all, I go through the titles. With the title, that first search, that preliminary search, going through the titles can help to understand what is happening before you now go to the next stage, which is the abstract, before you now go into the full text. So it's very important. So while you are searching, the first point of call are the titles to understand, okay, just like we assessed some titles here, some questions. From those questions, we're able to know what we are talking about. So the same thing, when you look at the titles of those studies, but there are some cases where the titles are not informative enough. Then you may need to go further and look at the abstract to see exactly what was done in those studies. So apart from getting your studies, your articles from established database, there's also what we call snowballing. Snowballing is when you identify a relevant article and you go to the reference list of the article and you try to look for the references they have cited to see if there are any sources that were included in their work that you have not found or you have not included in your work. That is snowballing. So when you look at it, you may want to do it with an existing systematic review close to the question you're asking, or an existing meta-analysis. So when you look at it, you may get some other articles which you could not find in the databases when you search. Okay, so study selection criteria. So you have to determine how the studies will be selected for inclusion. And this one is talking about how many people will review the studies, what are their qualifications. Sometimes people put this, in fact, they mention the names, maybe the author is okay, Saba and Adekumbi did the study. Saba arrived at so number of Adekumbi arrived, and when they resolved it, eventually they agreed on so number. So it depends. Or maybe you want to say, okay, in the first search I did, I arrived at this number. In the second search, I arrived at, when I after screening everything, this was the final output. So just to have that replicate in your search. So how the data will be extracted? You may want to use Excel, and that's why anybody trying to do systematic review and data, Excel is your friend. It's very important to be proficient with Microsoft Excel. So once you try to update one's knowledge on the use of, if you're able to, because when I started doing systematic, the first I used to use what they call Ryan. There's one tool, and you call it Ryan. So if you Google it, you register, and when you after you download your sources from the databases, most of the time when you are going to download, you download the CSV file, the comma separated value file. It's just like an Excel file, but it's not very similar to Excel. So when you download those files, not only CSV, you can also download other formats. We have the RIS and so on and so forth. So when you download them, you upload them into Ryan. So when you upload into Ryan, Ryan helps you. It makes it easy for you to look at each of those studies. It brings them together. You look at them, then you can include, exclude. You can do a lot of things. You can read the abstract if available. Then at the end of the day, you arrive at the number of articles you need. But lately, I've found Excel more useful. So it depends on each individual. If you are not very proficient with Excel, you may decide, okay, I want to try my hands on Ryan to help me extract and select the necessary studies. And each time you are selecting, you have in mind all the criteria you have set for inclusion and exclusion. So as you are looking at it, and sometimes you may not be sure by looking at the title whether to include or not, or by looking at the abstract, you may not be sure. You may need to read the full text. So in that case, you put it in pending, or maybe you maybe, so that next time you can come back later and go through it and be sure whether to include or exclude. So you use you can use Excel to extract your data. You can formulate tables within Microsoft Excel and extract all those data you need. And for meta-analysis, you already identify what you want to meta-analyze. So all those data, you extract them. Then also, there is what we call the study quality appraisal. So many journals also request for this, but some journals, if you're able to give a very good methodology, how you did it, they may not request for it. So, but there are different tools people use to do the quality appraisal. So, but our focus for this workshop will not dwell too much on quality appraisal. We would focus more on the meta-analysis. Okay, again, you have to tell us how the data was synthesized. So the exact method will depend on the data available in the included study. So it depends on the data you are able to find in the included studies. So all these things must be stated in the methodology. Okay, so the next thing is to do the thorough search to find the relevant article using a structured search methodology. But for me, yes, apart from using a structured search methodology, what is also important is to make sure that, because the reviewers, what they want to see that comprehensiveness, is to make sure that all the necessary articles that should be in your review are there. Because it won't be nice if at the end of the day, one submits the schematic and the reviewer now points out like 5 or 6 different articles that were supposed to be part of that review and are not there. So it will seem as if one has not really done a good job. Okay, so we have talked about the keywords, the headings, and how to search. Maybe what I'll do is I'm going to use 1 or 2 databases as an example of searching for those articles. So maybe we'll take one of the topics we have posted earlier. We'll pick one of those topics and try to search. But that will be the last thing we've done. Let's quickly run through the slides because of time. So I'll try to come back. Please remind me so that we can quickly demonstrate the search briefly. Okay, so this one is talking about a search log. Search log. So when you are searching, you must have a note where everything you are doing, you must be noting them each time, because the search will take a number of weeks or months, depending on how available you have to do the work. So sometimes maybe you started in January or something, you became very busy, and in February you have to come back maybe in March. Most likely you would have forgotten a lot of things you have done in January. So if you have a search log, you have written a lot of things, all the procedures you have taken, the date you did the search, the keywords you use, database, how many articles did you get at first when you searched, and all these things. If you are able to take note of all these, each time you search, all the keywords you use, document them. The date you did it, the database in which you searched, all these things will help. In fact, at the end of the day, when you're writing your methodology, you can easily bring all those information and put them there. So again, this will help you to rerun searches. For example, in Google Scholar, for example, if you use a particular set of keywords, and at the end of the day, you have maybe 1,000 results. After you have looked at maybe 100 of those 1,000, although you may not be able to look at the entire 1,000, but maybe you have looked at 100, and your plan is, generally what people do is to look at maybe the first 500 results. They want to look at the first 500 or the first 300 results, and to select the relevant studies from that. So maybe you have started and you have done maybe 50 and you are tired. So it's better to document that, okay, I searched with this keyword on so date, and I've been able to add maybe 50 up to page so to my library. So by the next time I'm coming back, I'll continue from page so. So that will help you. So when you come back, you know, okay, this is where you stop. These are the keywords you use. You can even bring the keywords again and search again to bring more or less the same results. And with that, you can continue. If perhaps you are using Google Scholar, but if you are using something like Scopus, you may be able to download you may need to download everything at once, and you go back to Excel to look at the titles one after the other. So, but whatever you do, try to make sure you are documenting. So you are documenting. So the search databases, once you use a minimum of 3 databases, don't use only one. Don't use only Google Scholar. You can use Google Scholar, Scopus, and Science Direct, depending on your field. If you are from medicine, you can use Google Scholar, PubMed, and maybe Embase. So depending on your field, try to use as many, the more the merrier. The more the merrier. Try to use as many databases as possible. So, but what I usually do is that I start with 1 or 2. Then after I must have finished with those 2, I will now go back to the other ones to search again. So when I search, I believe that most of the papers I did, I must have gotten it from those 1 or 2. So I will now be looking out for new ones not gotten from the initial databases. So then, just like I said, database must align with the research topic and research question. So most of the time, if you are in medicine, you try to use PubMed and medical related databases. So if you are in other fields, you can use Google Scholar, Scopus, maybe Wiley, depending on the focus of those journals. But the more, the merrier. So after you have searched, you export the records to your library or to Excel sheets, where you can now look at them. And this is where the knowledge of Excel, basic knowledge of Excel, will help. So in Excel, it's good to have the knowledge of filtering, how to filter information. You can also use colors to identify certain, maybe the ones you want to include, you can color them green. The ones you don't want to include, you can color them red, font color, or background color. So all these things can help to manage them if perhaps you are not using a resource like Ryan. And the disadvantage I see in Ryan is that Ryan is not really a disadvantage, but it depends. If you don't have internet, for example, you cannot continue your work. you must always have internet to use Ryan. But if you're using Excel, you don't have problem. Once you already have all the titles and their metadata, their information, you can continue to look at them, to screen them, to do whatever you want to do with them without internet. Okay, so you can also, apart from the title, you can also get the abstract and the year, the authors. All these will also be important later on as you go along. Okay, so I said it the other time that some people, after they develop their protocols, they register it. So some people register the protocol, it's fine. If one can do that. Okay, so this is an example of a search from different search engines. So the person searched from Scopus, Google Scholar, PubMed, and Web of Science. You can see this person actually, after the search, he got 32 articles using these keywords: lameness, locomotion, claw, lesion, all the necessary keywords. Put them into Scopus, and he got 32 at the end of the day. And he put the date. The date, yeah, he got those results. Same thing with Google Scholar. You can see 3,450. You cannot read the entire 3,000. It's not possible. I don't think it's not even advisable, because at the end of the day, one will get overwhelmed. So it's better to, after you have tried to narrow your search, just consider maybe the first 500. There are publications that actually use this approach. So you can also cite them that in line with also author, we are also considering the first 500 results we got using our search terminologies. So you have the date. So this is just a simple listing of the search log I was talking about. That you should have all the information, the database, the search terminologies, the number of articles, the date, and any other thing that comes to your mind. You note it there. So the next one is to select the studies. So the first stage of selection is title. You select based on title. So once you select, you screen some articles out after you have selected based on title. Then secondly, you select based on abstract. All these things I'm saying, they may take some time. Maybe that title selection, it can take you maybe like 1 week, depending on how many sources you're able to get. So after you do that, when you go into the next stage, start looking at the abstract. So anyone that does not fit, you screen it out. Then again, you can now look at the quality again. Then again, another thing you do at the beginning, because at the end of the day, if you are using Excel, for example, you bring data from different databases. Maybe you are coming from Scopus, Google Scholar, because Google Scholar too now you can export CSV. Scopus, Google Scholar, Wiley, and all that. So when you bring them into one Excel sheet, you need to remove the duplicates, then screen the titles. After screening the title, you screen the abstracts. Then after that, you select the studies you want to use. After that, you now go for the full text to extract the data. So see, the first one is to screen the title and abstract, to scan just the titles and abstract to remove studies that are clearly not related to the topic. Then the next one is to do the full text screening using your inclusion, exclusion, and exclusion criteria. So you also assess the results. So just like I said, you can use Excel, Microsoft Excel, or you can use tools like Ryan. Then there are different tools for quality assessment. So most of the time, if perhaps you don't have so many papers to include, maybe you are getting like maybe 20, 30 papers, it may be advisable to try to do some measure of the quality assessment to also strengthen work. But if you have so many numerous papers, maybe like 60, 70, 100, it will be, you may, if you're able to prove beyond reasonable doubt that you have done a rigorous work, perhaps it may be acceptable without the quality official quality assessment. So, but all in all, it's always better and it has more value to do a critical appraisal, assessing the quality of the studies you are including. And also, if possible, it's better to have more than one person. If possible, it's always better so that it strengthens your methodology, showing that it's not just a one-man show. It strengthens it. It's always better. So when you're assessing it, people can have different views and you can discuss it and resolve whatever concerns that you have. So when you are writing the methodology, you have to state the number of people that is. And in some cases, too, you can also state the preliminary review you did. When you wanted to start the systematic review of methodology, you may decide to do some preliminary review, like we said the other time. So the procedure you took in doing that preliminary review, which is also called scoping review in some cases, those procedures, it may also be helpful to document them and also include them in the methodology. So the stronger the methodology, the higher the chances that it will be accepted. So at the end of the day, you have a flow chart to summarize the number of studies, the ones you removed, the ones you added, and so on and so forth. So just like we have Prisma checklist, we also have the Prisma flow chart. This flow chart is available. You can download it and edit it based on the outcome of your search and selection procedure. So you can keep track of the resources collected. So here we have the identification, screening, and included studies. So okay, which database do you use? How many studies do you identify from Google Scholar? You can see this 97 I wrote here now. Definitely, when you search in Google, you can never get 97. But this 97 is the number that were added to the Google Scholar library during the search. After looking at about 500 studies, the first 500 studies. So it was 97 that met the criteria based on title screening that were included initially. Again, so then Scopus, this is number, Science Direct, Wiley, and so on. So again, you remove some of them, you remove some records, so you remove the duplicates, you remove some of them due to ineligibility, and in some cases, you remove some of them after looking at their abstract. So this part, you have to detail all you have done. So at the end of the day, the full text that was screened is 113. Out of 113, 30 were excluded. Then the remainder was worked on to retrieve the information. Then all the papers, all the 83 were available, and they were assessed for eligibility. And some of them were still screened out. At the end of the day, only 67 made it. So all these stages will be stated. Okay, so then the next thing is to extract the data. Or then again, to extract the data, you do it using Excel and Microsoft Excel. So it's a lot easier. So each of the studies, you have to pick them one by one. Then in columns, you have different information you want to extract. So when data has been extracted, you can now go ahead for analysis. The same thing, it's better to have more than one person, if possible. It may also make the work easier and faster. But all the parties involved must know what they want to do. They must have an idea of what they are doing. Because if somebody is, if one person is skilled and understands what he's doing and the other person does not, it may not help the process. So everybody involved should have an idea of what they're actually doing and how to go about it. So the next thing is to interpret the results. So you may want to do qualitative synthesis. That's the systematic review. Or you want to go ahead to do what? Quantitative, which is the meta-analysis. We have said a lot about all this. So among the best practices, sorry, I forgot to change this fonts. It's okay. So we have emphasized many of these things. Adopt a reporting standard, identify all the sources consulted, use a search log to keep track of the searches, manage references by citation management to, again, another thing that can help, yes, is to use all these citation management to like Mendeley. I believe most of us are already familiar with all these citation management tools, so they can also make the process less stressful. You can also report those who are involved, their qualification. All these will add to the quality of the methodology. And again, there will be visual presentation. So in systematic review, for example, you also get some data. So those data, you only need to present them descriptively. Descriptive, maybe you want to look at the different years, the trend in all the included studies that you have. What are different years in which they were published? You want to look at the trend. Is it that there's increasing interest in that particular area within the past few years and all that? So you can do the trend, you can look at the geographical location, in which countries is this research field of the greatest interest. Is it in Asia? Is it in Africa? So all these, you can also discuss them that, okay, this particular problem has been well addressed in so part of the world and is yet to be addressed in so part of the world. This can also be a point of discussion. So then this Prisma flowchart I just showed, you also need to also include it. It's part of the results of the systematic review of meta-analysis. So everything one is doing, one will continue to what? Take note. You take note of the process. You also take note of new ideas you can find in the literature you are looking at. So you may read one of the literatures, the relevant literature that applies something very new that you have never heard of, or something most of the other publications did not even talk about. You may want to bring it out and make it a point of discussion. Guys, expand it in discussing the review of meta-analysis. So I want to now focus now on meta-analysis. We have talked a lot about the preliminary stages leading to the studies you want to include, and now we'll look at the meta-analysis. So the first scenarios, I believe I've mentioned a lot about this. And when you have some intervention, maybe you want to look at the impact or the effectiveness of a particular intervention versus the control. We want to look at the effectiveness of intervention A versus intervention B, or in location A versus of the effectiveness of a particular intervention in two different locations. So you want to compare them. For example, you want to compare probiotics versus vaccines, maybe in humans or in fish or in poultry. Okay, is it better to use probiotics than to use vaccines? So we want to look at it. Okay, what are the impacts of probiotics? What are the impacts of vaccines? Now look at all the research that has been done on probiotics having similar research designs. So we now analyze the results. Okay, we now take a decision that from this analysis, meta-analysis, we think probiotics have better effects. And we advise farmers to prioritize probiotics over vaccines, or the other way around. So it depends. Or maybe you are looking at the mother tongue instruction versus foreign language instruction, and which one has more impact on the performance of students. So, or effects of different agricultural practices on fish yield or disease resistance, and many other examples in different fields similar to these. Okay, so the heading here is the problem. Let me take it away from slideshow so you can see this. Okay, so here the question, the heading is when not to meta-analyze. I think I mentioned this earlier, that when the studies are too heterogeneous, one should avoid when they are too heterogeneous. So for example, maybe study 1 is looking at number of nosebleeds. Study 2 is looking at quantity of blood from the nose. You can see these are different data to bring together. So if you want to look at number of nosebleed, look at it across all the studies. If you want to look at quantity of blood from the nose, look at it across all the studies. Don't module number of nosebleed with quantity of blood, or change in a PTT, or proportion of people discharged from the proportion of people discharged home, number of blood transfusions, or major bleeding. So all these things, we have to be sure that the studies are more homogeneous than heterogeneous. Then again, don't use too few studies, will not make sense for a meta-analysis. Maybe you have only 3 studies or 5 studies. It may not be appropriate. In fact, even it may be appropriate, but it may not be accepted when the number of studies you are looking at are too few. Although there are meta-analyses out there where the number of studies are not so many, maybe 10, 15, 20. But it depends on how interesting or how important the question we're asking is, and how well you can justify the fact that you have only a few number of studies you are including. Then again, if most of the studies you have are low quality studies, maybe studies published in predatory journals, or studies that are not even indexed anywhere, and you look at their quality, you find out that these studies, they didn't really go through enough rigor in designing them, then it's better to avoid including them, because the reviewers will also look at all these sources to take a decision on accepting or not. Okay, sorry. Okay. Sorry, I think I missed this one. When to meta-analyze. So one should meta-analyze when we have said it, similar design, similar population, when you have comparators and you have similar outcomes. So the PICO must be similar across board. Then again, try to make your meta-analysis goal a smart one. If you use PICO, you achieve a smart goal: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. Because if it's not smart, one may be lost in the literature, because there are too many things published out there today on a daily basis. Okay, so the outcome of the meta-analysis usually is what we call forest plot or funnel plot. So you can have a forest plot. You'll see how it looks like. So this is a graphical display to illustrate the strength of effects from the studies, among the studies. You want to look at the effect size of each intervention. So how strong is the effect of the interventions you are comparing? Maybe you are looking at control and intervention. Is the intervention really, does it really have a significant effect compared to the control, or does intervention A really have a significant effect compared to intervention B? So it helps to examine the uncertainty around individual studies. It helps to visually appraise evidence of heterogeneity. Then it combines the reports to give the effect of individual studies. It also helps to concisely summarize the strength of effect, precision, and heterogeneity. So this is an example of a forest plot. Sorry. So as you can see here, we have each of the studies. It said deaths from prostate cancer. So this one, they are looking at the number of deaths, maybe among a particular population, from prostate cancer. So this first study is the author and the year, Gothenburg 2010, blah, blah, blah. So these are the studies. So this one is using just how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 studies are involved here in this particular forest plot. So you can see here, this particular box is where we look at the risk ratio. So we have 2 types of effects. We have random effect and we have non-random effect. So this box is showing that when you look at this study, the first one, for example, which one does it favor the most? The outcome from the study, what does it favor? Does it favor screening or does it favor control with respect to the death from prostate cancer? It means that those who go for screening, do we have more people dying or more people surviving from prostate cancer compared to those who do not go at all? So here you can see that the box tilts more towards screening. So they favors screening, but it's still attached to the middle line. So the farther away it is from the middle line, the closer it is to that particular intervention we are talking about. And the closer to the middle, it shows that they are a kind of at par when it comes to the effects. So for this first one, ERSPC 2009, you can see that the box is on the left side, closer to screening. It favors screening more than the control. So these are individual effects. So we have Gothenburg also favors screening. Coping 2004, this one is in the middle, but it tilts more towards control. The next one also tilts more towards control, and this one is in the middle. At the end of the day, when they measure, so it's not really based on the number that falls on the particular side, it's the effect. Looking at the sample size, the means, the means, the standard deviation and standard error, and the likes. So that is what determines the final outcome. So this is the final outcome here, this diamond shape. So this diamond shape is giving the final outcome that at the end of the day, this the meta-analysis we are doing favors screening more than the control. And we can see the parameters here. We have the test for heterogeneity. So we have the test for heterogeneity. This one is I square. This is the value. This is the chi-square value, degree of freedom. We have the p-value. And as we know, if the p-value is less than 0.05, then it is significant. But if it is greater than, then this is not significant. Although it favors screening, but that effect is not significant. So this I square, okay, this I square is actually what we actually use to measure the heterogeneity, I square. So this one is 55%. 55% heterogeneity. So it shows that it is not, the heterogeneity is not very high. It means it's almost 50% homogeneous, and it's okay. So they said test for the, okay, so this one is 50% homogeneous and it is not significant. That's what it's saying. The p-value is 0.06. So it's greater than 0.05, so it's not significant, although it is 55%, but this heterogeneity is not significant. Then also the overall effect, which is represented by this diamond shape, is also not significant. It's 0.25. The p-value is 0.25, so it is not significant. So this is the result. Then also we have this one is the percentage weight. So if you calculate the percentage weight for it and also give the risk ratio, so like a range. So this is the risk ratio and the range. All these will be reported. So they said the effect of screening on all cause mortality and death from prostate cancer. So that is the forest plot for you. Then we have okay. So to carry out a meta-analysis, I've showed you the outcome that you're expecting. At the end of the day, when you input all your data, what will help you to make the decision is the forest plot and the parameters so reported. So you identify the outcome to the reported. What was the outcome from your PICO? You are measured. There's something being measured in the literature that you want to report. So you do that. Determine the statistics you use, extract data from each study, combine the results to obtain summary or effect, and so on and so forth. So I think Mr. Ramiro.
Hello,
Yes. How many minutes more do we have?
5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. So I want to round up so that by next week we can continue. So after you have identified all these, then the next thing is, so we have two types of outcomes. We have continuous outcome and binary outcome. It's either continuous or binary. Maybe it is continuous. That is where you want to use mean and standard deviations. So you use the sample size, the mean, and standard. These are the information you are going to extract for different parameters. Maybe you are looking at growth parameters, feed conversion ratio, and all these things. So you want to look at the sample size that was involved. Then you want to look at the mean, and all this information you want to extract from the literature. So any paper that does not have the parameters will not be included at the end of the day. You may need to exclude it from the meta-analysis. So, and this is what we call the continuous outcome. Then for the binary is when you are measuring counts, maybe numbers, like the one I showed you, the number of people the number of mortality, for example, how many of them died due to the intervention, or how many of them survived. So all you need here is you want to know the total events. What's the total number of organisms that were being considered before the intervention, and how many of them were affected by the intervention, and what's the how many of them were affected, that's the event, how many of them were not affected, and what's the total sample size. So this one is for the what? For the exposed. That's the one that was exposed to the treatment. While for the exposed, maybe for the control, or maybe you are looking at two different interventions, the intervention A and intervention B. So the forest plot will now give you a final verdict to show the effects of the interventions. So again, in the effects, there are two weighting options. We have the fixed effect and the random effect. So the most important thing here to pick is that our focus is to use the random effect, because the fixed effect assumes only one true fixed effect, but random effect would factor in the differences in different studies. So in our meta-analysis, we are going to use random. I've talked about heterogeneity. So they said there are different types. We have the clinical heterogeneity, methodological, and statistical. So then again, so the next thing I want us to do is to download software we are going to be using for meta-analysis. That is a RevMan. We call it Review Manager. So please go to Google and type Review Manager and try to do that. This is the interface of the software. So you download it so that we can also demonstrate. I promise to, because time has not permitted, I promise to show us quickly look at how to search and get some results. Maybe hopefully we'll try it some other time, because time has been fast spent. So but for now, I want us to download although there are many other tools out there, but this is the tool I think I've laid my hands upon and I've used effectively. So I want us to download it. So by next session, we're going to introduce ourselves to how to use it to get the output for the meta-analysis. So these are the interface, these are different interfaces of the software. So if there's any challenge, so you can let us know, but try to type, then in the review manager, when you're downloading it, it's better you can just state that you are using it for educational purposes, so that it can be allowed to download it. So once you say it is for educational purposes, it's free to download. And maybe you may need to put your maybe institutional email or something. I've forgotten, it's been a while since I downloaded mine. So but let's try to download Review Manager, and that is what will help us to Then again, secondly, the first assignment is that we should download the review manager. The second assignment is for us to, for the different topics we have noted today, let us get papers. Let's get some papers that could be from which we can extract some data that could be used for this. So I think those are the two homework we are going to be having. And hopefully next week we can continue and focus more on using the review manager for our meta-analysis. So I think I'm going to stop here because of time. I hope it has been a time that is worthwhile regarding this particular topic we are discussing, and hopefully by next week we can move further ahead and get a better clarity. And I believe a number of people from here will be able to come up with one or two systematic review and meta-analysis papers that could be published in Q1, Q2 journals. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, we are going to share the PowerPoint presentation, the slide. We are going to share that. Then we really appreciate Dr. Saba for the lecture. And I think to serve as a recap, the first part of the lecture is just like, let me say, the theoretical part of the paper we are going to use for the meta-analysis. How do you select the paper? How do you write the methodology section? And that is why, for those of you are going to realize that I sent you an email that you should look at there's a video on systematic review that I sent to you, that you should look at that video before attending the class. But at least Dr. Saba has equally revised those areas again in the area of what is inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria. So by our next class, we are going to look at the final paper that you have extracted, the final paper that you have decided that you are going to use for the meta-analysis. So we are going to run the analysis with those papers and then analyze the result and then come to a reasonable conclusion about it. So now we understand the theoretical aspect of it, of how we are going to get the paper. But if you still need any clarification, I think you can also lay your hands on those videos. This one will be available, then the one I sent to you too will be available. And then I think we are going to have a contact to Dr. Saba so that you can also ask questions before the next class, so that during the analysis, you'll be able to have a good understanding of what it takes to write the review paper. Dr. Saba, there's a question that states that, one, the ref manager is a free software. Two, can we use meta-analysis in social and management sciences?
Okay, regarding the first question, yes, RevMan is free. The last time I checked, it's free. So please try to download it. Try to download it. I think it's free. That's why I said just note that there will be options. Now, what are you using it for? So once you state that you're using it for educational purposes, either you're a student or a lecturer, so, and perhaps they may ask you to use an institutional email to confirm that you are using it for academic purposes. So that's just it. So it is free. Then the second question, you said, can we use it you can use it anywhere. All you just need to do is to identify an area, because meta-analysis is still it is still at its infant stage. Many disciplines have not been applying it. So you may be one of the early academics to start applying it in your field. So all you need to do is to identify the problem, state the problem, then try to look for studies with similar outcomes. So you want to use for the meta-analysis. So if you can do that successfully, then you can forge ahead. For example, we are talking about the issue of maybe survival, or maybe in finance. Maybe we talk about number of maybe we want to talk about losses or profits or something related to finance. So there are a lot of things that could come up that you can actually meta-analyze or apply.
Sorry,
systematic
doctor,
review method.
I have a question, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, my question is, does it mean we can only use empirical papers for the meta-analysis?
Thank you very much for that question, sir. Yes, you can only use empirical papers because even the empirical paper you are using, if it does not have the data you need, then automatically it will be excluded.
Okay.
So we can only use empirical paper. Your focus is empirical papers.
Yeah.
Research papers. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. And you talked about you also talked about the quality appraiser. Is there any tools we can use to do that?
Yeah, there are different tools depending on the type of review you are doing. RevMan also does it. It's also done in RevMan, quality assessments. You can also use RevMan. This RevMan I told you to download.
You said what?
RevMan that I told you to download.
Okay. Right.
Yes, you can also use it for the quality appraiser.
Okay.
And there are many other tools too that people have been
sir.
using. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So
Hello, sir.
Okay. Any other question?
Yes, sir. Dr. Saba, well done.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Jonathan. My worry is access to some of these database.
Okay. Yes,
Having access to this. Is there any alternative, any way out?
Thank you for stating that. So, usually, and that is one of the reasons why I've always tried to make sure that one is able to use Google Scholar as much as possible, because most institutions, especially in the global south, don't have access to most of the databases that are useful for systematic review and meta-analysis. So it will be very helpful if people are able to learn how to use Google Scholar as much as possible. Then also, you can also use like PubMed for those in health sciences. I think PubMed is free. The only thing is that you may not get the full text, but the full text, you can still find your way around the full text. Maybe at the end of the day, what you need is the titles. You can get the titles and the abstracts. I think the full text will be easy. After you must have scanned the title and the abstract, at the end of the day, maybe you are left with 20, 30, 40 papers. You can now look for how to source those papers. You can look, you can send, you can talk to friends who are in institutions to help you download some of the papers. You can also use some databases where you can also get them free of charge. Google Scholar, you can get some of them over there. So, but if one can use Google Scholar effectively to get the papers, then maybe PubMed for those who have access. Then I think there are some other free databases too, although I've not been using them so much, but I'm going to do more research on those databases and inform you if of one or two others you can add. So, but
okay, thank you.
But if one can use Google Scholar as much as possible, I know there is a ProQuest. Most of them, they are subscribed. Most institutions pay for them. That is the challenge. But I think one of the things we should achieve here is to be able to get resources that are also free, that could be used in the absence of subscribed databases. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Hello, doctor. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, doctor. Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. Yeah, I wanted to find out that if you want to make a choice of your title for a meta-analysis, will it have to be a local? Doesn't matter if it has a kind of a local significance. You know, for example, in a particular geographical area, or does it have to look at it in a global context?
Okay, sir. So basically, it doesn't matter. So long as you have the data source, the empirical research for you to analyze, then it doesn't matter. In fact, you should be more specific when you're talking about a meta-analysis and systematic review. But on the other hand, one may want to do a study of global significance in order for it to be more impactful, and it also increase the possibility of citation if it is of a global relevance. But if the problem is an important problem that is of a local relevance, and it has availability of data, that is empirical papers that you can extract data from, then I think it's also acceptable and it should be okay.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Saba, there's a question that says that is it possible for someone to write a paper and combine both systematic review and meta-analysis?
Okay, thank you for the question. So basically, just like I said during the presentation, that a systematic review is a qualitative review or qualitative synthesis, while meta-analysis was a quantitative synthesis. So most of the time when you're writing systematic meta-analysis, you must have carried out systematic review alongside. But sometimes, because you have done meta-analysis, the systematic review aspect may not be as elaborate as your focus, which is the meta-analysis. So you can, of course, do a systematic review and also back it up with a meta-analysis. In fact, that is even a stronger paper that will be easily accepted, as long as you're able to justify that you have actually done the systematic review component and also you have included the meta-analysis. And again, one thing I wanted to say the other time is that while looking at those studies, apart from keeping a log, a search log, it's also important to keep notes. Okay, I think I mentioned it. To keep note, any interesting trend or thing you find in literature, you write them down. Because before you know it, you have compiled a lot of them that will be useful in your further discussion during the systematic review.
Hello, doctor. I have a question too. As a follow-up to that,
okay,
probably I have some systematic review I did that was presented somewhere. If I still want to take it like higher, can I add meta-analysis to it and still republish?
Okay, have you published it earlier?
It's in a conference. The systematic is a conference. So can I do a meta-analysis and republish?
Of course,
is it possible to do it?
Is a conference, is it conference proceeding or conference paper? Is it just the abstract?
Proceeding.
Okay, proceeding with the full paper, right? With the full work.
Yes, for the systematic.
Okay, anyway, you can expand it and because of course the year you published it, things must have been updated since then. So if you want to do it, then you can update. It definitely will no longer be the same as what you have published earlier. So you can update with the recent publications and also add meta-analysis to it, verify.
Somebody has a question that is it reference manager or ref manager?
Review manager. So we call it rev man. Review manager. They also call it rev man.
Okay.
So you either type review manager or rev man.
Okay, review manager or ref man. So I think at this point we have come to the end of the training. The recording will be sent to our email. The recording will be sent to the email, then the materials, the PowerPoint presentations will also be sent. And also we are going to, if you have any questions, we are going to create a WhatsApp group. So if you have any questions, just Dr. Saba will be there. Just make sure you ask, you seek necessary clarification, because it will be okay for us by January 11 if we can understand the analysis. Now, this one is just for the theoretical part. So you have at least, I gave you the first video on systematic review. This is another one linking systematic review and meta-analysis. So the next class will now be the practical itself. So if you can understand the theoretical part, how you get the final paper, then running the analysis will be quite easy, and then writing the paper. So by His grace, by January 11, we'll be having the next class. So let's keep in touch. So may God bless. Have a nice time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.